Howdy meeps, and welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first show of 2019. It is, we're a few weeks late. We'll admit we're a few weeks late, but it is our 2019 New Year's resolution show. Hi, Jess. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm fine. And where are you? You don't look like you're at home.
I'm in Miami.
Oh,
No dogs.
yeah.
I miss them. I've been away from
I
home
know.
for like a week now. I go home in like 7 hours. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
good.
7 hours is cool. That's nice. So you spend some time with us, and you pack up, and you fly out.
Pretty
That's
well.
The important
okay.
stuff.
And Erica, how are you? I've seen you this year as well already, so
Yeah, that's enough right there. We've interacted once. We're done for the rest of
we're
the year
done
now.
for the rest of the year. And
But,
hello to Travis Magram, who we also interacted for a very brief period of time,
oh yes,
talking
once,
about pie.
once so far this year.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what?
it,
We have a great record so far.
right? That's pretty good. And good evening to Ming. How are you, Ming Diti? Hopefully your New Year's went well and that you are doing well in Atlanta. Um, so we're going to talk about our New Year's resolutions because, well, I mean, we've got stuff to talk about. And Jesse and Erica and I have all made some New Year's resolutions in regards to board game design. And Jesse had been talking to this person about another format. So, Jesse, can you explain what that
Sure.
format is?
Sure. Yeah. So Erica had posted on Twitter about got you all to stop, start, continue. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a rosebud thorn reflection. So our rose is something from last year that was awesome, and we wanted to do it again and do it even better this year. Our bud is something that we were either inspired by or we want to do better, or something new that we want to do this year. And our thorn is something that was like a pain point last year that we would like not to have stab us again this year.
Okay. So, what we're going to do is the three of us are going to go through our rose, bud, and thorn for 2018 into 2019. Based on our experiences as game designers. And then we'd love for the rest of you all who are watching and interacting with
Yeah.
us
Play along.
to play along to if you can join, that'd be wonderful. We'll have to figure that out. I think we can do it. But also, even if you just write in the comments what your roses are, what your buds are, and what your thorns are, we'll gladly read them out. And we'd love to hear from you. Okay, so let's start. Erica, what's your rose? And again, Jesse, the rose is what?
The rose is something that was awesome last year that you're gonna try and bring with you into 2019.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
I feel
Erica.
like my rose and thorn are going to conflict very hard right now.
It happens.
I'm putting that out there right now. All right, because I have a problem where I work too
Every
much.
rose has a thorn.
And so, you're getting all metaphorical again. My roses, actually, I think last year I had a really good year for game stuff. Anyway, the rest of the year was a little weird and sad, but overall the good stuff was, either games commissions, games picked up, things finally coming out or getting scheduled. Like it was, everything just sort of started steamrolling for what this year is going to look like. And this year is going to be pretty crazy too. But I'm so thankful for all of it that I just have to say all the work that goes into it it's right now, it feels totally worth it. I hope I keep saying that because, I don't feel like I sleep enough, but so.
So the rose is what specifically?
Specifically, my rose would be that all the hard work I put into the year, and it's kind of like everything is kind of coming from that. It's my I guess my win for the year is sort of like seeing the payoffs coming of all my hard work put in. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you got to see all of the things that you contractually were obligated to do. You did them.
Not just actually obligated. Oh, but fun ones. So, like, for example, this just showed up at my door. I got my designer copies, so I'm assuming it means it's in stores now.
Nice, very nice. Yeah.
Nice.
That's how
Awesome.
I know when things go retail. It shows up at my house.
Right.
But like stuff like that, right? I'm like, I have an effing Ghostbusters game. Like, how crazy is that?
That's awesome. Right?
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
And I've got more crazy things coming. So,
Yeah.
as I said, like, that's a super win for me in comparison to everything else that was going on last year.
Right. And you even traveled specifically for game design.
Yeah,
By not going to cons, but I mean, like, doing something
Yeah,
else.
I had to
Yeah.
go meet the owner of a property because, and so I ended up having to fly to California to go hang out at an author's house because that's
Which
what
is
people
hilarious
do.
because you know
He's a
maybe-
Toronto native.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what's
I mean,
even funnier.
the funniest thing is that yeah, you could have just traveled to London at one point in that person's life and been at their house.
I was kind of hoping he was just gonna be home for Christmas, and then I could be
Right.
like, I'll just see you then. But no, I had to go to LA.
Yeah.
Because
Too funny.
that is the weird things you don't expect to happen in game design.
Right? Very
Crazy
cool
world.
though. Jesse, what about you? Jesse,
Yeah.
did you know that I can't put you in a big picture, but I can put all three of us in a big picture? But I
Let's
can
be a
put
big picture
Erica-
together.
I can put Erica and Sen in a big picture, but all
Because
three.
I'm special.
Yeah, I don't need. My personality is big enough, you know.
Oh, is that
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, what?
No, go for
Your
it.
roses.
rose.
Yeah, I see. So my rose is was pushing boundaries last year with designs. So everything that Sen and I have worked on and did last year, all of it was driven forward by some effort to do something different. So mutants like completely took deck building, and we were like, forget it. It needs to be fully asymmetric. And we also took all sorts of other things that we find annoying about deck builders, threw them out the window, and we made just like a hugely innovative design. But not just that. Another and this is two games that are crossing over into 2019, but Ties That Bind, a role-playing game that we put together, a little small one about family separation at the border. It's just like when we started talking about it in the summer, I was like, sure, yeah, let's do this. And we started doing it, and we finally got to play it in December when I was in London, and then Sen played it again at Breakout. And it's such an incredibly like powerful experience. And I just sometimes can't believe that I helped make it.
Yeah, I mean, I will play it at Breakout because if we're talking in the future.
Sorry, Basecamp.
Did you? I was gonna say you played it at Basecamp, right? How'd it go?
Yeah, it went really well. It went so well that people were talking about it the next day,
Ooh.
showing their artifacts to other people to explain what their experience was.
Aw.
And the best thing was like people were thankful for playing it. That was really interesting. They were like, I'm not gonna say it was a fun experience, but it was a great experience. I think that's what people had to say about it, which was really nice. And there are people who aren't necessarily role players, like Michael Chang. This is his first experience role playing, and I said, I'm really sorry for
Whatever.
dropping you in the deep end of story gaming, but here you
Oh,
go.
no.
Have fun. There's no dice.
Yeah.
Only he got that punchline, guys.
Yeah.
You totally froze for a second, and that's what you came
Oh.
back with. It would be even funnier if it was even less contextual. I would have
Right.
really enjoyed that even more, just comedically.
Even more. But yeah, everything was really good about it. We brushed up a couple of the rules after the first play test, and after the second play test, the only real things that we added were about, hey, you know what? It's actually beneficial to have two people running
GM.
as the GM. It's a really heavy subject matter, so it's literally about separation at the border, and it's adversarial. So it's not like a GM who guides you through a story, and it's not like a dungeon master who has to rely on the fate of the dice to predict your outcome or tell your outcome. This is like I'm adversarially trying to make your experience horrible but good, horribly good, right? And so there were some really neat times when as a GM, I couldn't take being in character, and Jesse had this experience as well. Like I just couldn't be that person. Like, so I decided to play the good cop, and I made Jamie, who is my co-GM, the bad cop. It was good that there was somebody to be the bad cop. And Jessey will pop back in when he gets back here. So
basically, what you're saying is you need someone to be the hard ass if you're going to play this game, and you get to be the softer
Well,
one.
no,
yes and no.
Yeah.
Or take it emotionally, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to have someone to share the emotional load with.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
when I play tested the game, I solo GM'd it, and I was like burned out for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, but you know what? This is a nice kind of connection to I think something we were talking about just before the end of. It's funny to say last year, even though it felt like it was just a few weeks ago. We were talking about how people are kind of more primed and ready for maybe different kinds of experiences through games.
Yeah.
So, and this one sounds like it's kind of fitting up that alley of like you are going to go through a lot of emotional things, roller coasters.
Yeah, I think where I originally got the idea for this particular thing was experiencing the blanket experience. Have you done it yet, Erica?
What's the blanket experience?
It's the Indigenous experience through like a guided, facilitated role play. So it basically compresses like 200 years of Indigenous experience in Canada through the blanket exercise. And the blanket exercise, and Jamie, that's funny. Jamie is listening, and Jamie was the bad cop. And he said after he played, he had a holy crap moment where he realized that he did the orders that I told him to do, which is like, you pull a gun on her if she makes any noise type stuff. He did it without question. And that was like his holy crap moment. It's like, this is what it feels like to be just doing your job, because we have that expressly in the rules to say, look, I'm just doing my job. Look, I'm just doing my job. Right? Because that's kind of how it is. I'm not evil by nature, but I'm doing my job to keep my country safe or whatever, right?
This is a whole psych class right here.
Right? back to the blanket experience. So if you get a chance, Erica, you should really do it. It's get like your whole faculty together and do it. There are sites where you can get people to come facilitate it. But basically, it was an experience where we stood on blankets. And those blankets represented our tie to the land. We were playing Indigenous people in Canada. And eventually you had a card in your hand. And as the facilitator was reading out the history of the land, 150 years ago, X happened, Y happened. Then they'd say, oh, do you have a blue card? If you have a blue card, you go stand over there. And they'd explain what happened to you. And I was one of the people with a blue card. I had to go stand over on an area that was not connected. And I was taken away from my home as a person going to live in residential school. And sometime a little bit later, all the people with blue cards were brought back, except if you had an X. If you had an X on your blue card, you died in residential school trying to run away.
Because you got experimented on, most likely.
Yeah, or you were either beaten because you didn't.
Oh, they did all kinds of
conform to rules,
terrible things.
Or you tried to run away and you died in the winter. And
you used to starve them to see what you could do.
Yeah, even if you got to go home, I was one who got to go home, and they said, "Oh yes, but you can't stand next to the person because you can't speak the language anymore." Right? Because if you remember about the big scoop, the 70s scoop, it's called, for those of you who aren't Canadian, it was basically beat the Indian out of the Indian. Right? Keep the person.
Well, they try to kill the culture, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately, there's a lot of examples of that in a lot of other countries.
Sure. This just happens to be our history, right?
This happens to be ours because we're young enough that we have one huge problem instead of lots of huge problems.
Yeah, and anyway, so it was just at the end of it, like my entire faculty, the whole school of human services was there, and there's like maybe 70 professors crying because this was, for a lot of them, they didn't think about this, right? They didn't. I grew up way up north, and I grew up with lots of people who were Indigenous, and so like I know these stories. Algoma University was anyway. But that history aside, it was a really touching moment for a lot of people, just a real eye opener. And so when Jessey and I were working on Ties That Bind, it started as sort of, hey, what if we use physical separation as a tool to do something? And then Kate Bullock had asked online, hey, does anybody want to write for Love and Resistance? This was around the time when the whole, tearing families apart at the border was high, like trending in the news,
Hmm.
and it's like, oh wait, this is unfortunately perfect, right? This is the idea of tearing families apart, spatial separation to promote like unease amongst players. So it was this weird serendipitous thing where it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we get to write this thing that is not beautiful but is tragic.
Well, I
Um,
say poignant, and it's
yeah,
amazing to
I think
think
that's
that a
poignant.
game these days can be poignant. I mean,
Yeah,
what an interesting concept in itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, going on to Buds,
No, no,
this is my.
you're. Oh, okay,
I know,
yeah.
I know, I know.
You owe us a
Jeez,
rose. I'm
I
making a
owe you
note.
a rose.
Cheater.
Um, but this is my Bud. So my Bud
Okay.
is RPGs. Buds being things that we want to. Oh, that's funny. The other was the
Yeah.
title. This is a crawler, so it keeps going across.
This one's
Themes,
Yeah.
not as
buds,
It's
fancy with
things
all
that
the
you
little
want.
bits.
A bud is something that you want to grow this year.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
want to grow in the RPG field a little bit more. I think there's a lot of untapped stuff happening there and a lot of crossover in
Mhm.
tabletop through RPGs and card and board. And so I'm gonna put a lot, not a lot more effort, because that's my when you hear my thorn, then you'll know why. Not a lot more effort,
Yeah.
but I aim to do something like Ties That Bind, like a shorter thing. Work on a couple RPG like things, more story games, or more games with story. So I think my real thing is I want to tell story more using games. So Jessey and I have another project, Mythos, that is really about stories. You're telling stories in the game. That's something. But back to my rose. We're gonna go back to my rose. I just like these titles. I think my rose is really all the innovation that Jessey and Jay and myself and Scott and everybody that I work with, all the publishers that we work with, uh, we've been able to really subtly innovate some things in deck building, in game design that we're really proud of. And I think to me, the roses that fully kind of bloomed was that. Just quickly, I'm gonna look at my Twitter feed for a second. Sorry, because it was well, where to go? It was Cora, the deck building game that it's sort of doesn't. I mean, people don't think of it as a deck building game, but it really is a very much so a deck building game.
Yeah.
And it was a game that Calvin Wong wrote about just the other day. So let's see
Mhm.
if I can find what he said. It was his number 5 game of the year, which is super awesome because Calvin plays lots of games, but he also really loves. Obviously, he loves Cora. Um, but let me just find out where he put it. He said something really, really nice about it, and I just want to find it. And Calvin, if you don't know, if you've seen Crazy Rich Asians, Calvin's in that movie. So it's a nice thing to have
Yeah.
Calvin write about your game.
He. Did you find it? I found it.
Now, oh, did you find it?
I do less
Just
Twitter than you. My history is very short.
Oh, okay.
The Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena alchemizes draw 3 cards, play 3 cards into a rapid fire avalanche of flow like water move and counter move. An incredible
Yeah,
design with more depth than still water. So,
perfect.
Ooh.
I mean, and that to me, if somebody can write that about a game, and that was the intent. Like Jessey and I had a very strict intent with that design, very very pointed plan of attack with the deck building in that game, and
mhm.
Calvin got it, and that to me just it resonates with me. And I just saw a couple of our other friends. from the UK who Jesse and I and Scott had developed one of their games. They finally have played core, and they're like, yeah, this is awesome. We sucked, but we loved it, and so that was really cool. Yeah, there we go. Oh, Helena's here. Hi, Helena. How's it going? Eric Slauson is here. Travis is here, of course. Dave Tome is here. Good. And yes, colonialism is dark as F, man. It is just dark. And Helena, you're right. Canadian history is pretty horrendous, as much as we like to hold ourselves up as,
Just wait for that Japanese internment game that comes next.
Right?
No, I'm just kidding. But there are, it's interesting. No, we did it too. Let's not, we did it too. But yeah, but again, interestingly enough, who knows? We're finally getting to a place where games are allowed to tackle subjects, which is a very interesting playground.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I think it could be very, very. I'm kind of fascinated to see where this is going to go and what people will allow at what time. But I think it'll keep growing in its own way because we are looking for these experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. So roses, Jesse, can you explain that for Eric again? He missed what roses were.
Yeah. So roses are something from last year that you thought was really awesome. That was sort of an awesome thing that probably you want to do again this year. A bud is something that happened last year that you want to grow this year. And a thorn, which we'll come to later, is a pain point from last year, something that you might like to avoid this year.
Okay, great. So I've already done my rose and my bud. Erica, what's your bud?
I have some new techniques I'd like to learn is a big one for me because I find like as anybody when you're prototyping, you are trying to come up with some of the most craziest stuff ever, especially when I try to make the wacky things that I see up here into real life is not always the easiest thing and can result in like finding people who will cut fiberglass for me and other such weird things like that. So I think that what I'm trying to do is learn new techniques to help myself. So I wouldn't mind learning things like 3D printing.
I was just going to say, are you going to go buy a 3D printer?
I'm not buying a 3D printer. I'll find a library to rent one from or something
yeah, at least
like
in
that.
Toronto, you can find that. That's.
I have a tool library around the corner from me, so at least I know I can now use their some of their laser cutting.
Do you have a makerspace at school?
Not yet. We're actually trying to build one. I don't know if they're going to give us power tools because we're elementary, but.
Right.
I would love some power tools.
Just give them your specs.
Kids, this is the drill.
or be on the committee that is managing it, and then you can decide that.
I'm on too many. They stick me on everything tech. I'm tired. I'm like the only person in my school that knows how computers work. It's annoying sometimes. So it's okay though. I'm teaching my kids everything Google. It's fascinating, and they are so much better at it than their parents. But it's fun. But yeah, so there's certain techniques I want to learn because I have these weird ideas in my head. And sometimes I'm like, I will literally have to teach myself a new skill just to make it happen. Like there's something really interesting coming up with a game design I have coming out where I had to actually teach myself the mechanics of how pop-up books work. And things like that. And I actually saw something that I thought was very inspiring because I have this idea right now where I need this kind of a game board that can change to be multiple stories at once. And so funny, historically, there was this really neat book that was found not too long ago where depending on which way you actually tried to open it, you had a whole new story on the inside. So I'm like trying to figure out a way to see if I can like almost mimic that idea.
It sounds like a cootie catcher with a story in it.
Not quite. Like I have an old promo thing I did. Oh my God, has there ever been a cootie catcher in a game? There's a
no, but now we're gonna make one.
Now we make one. This
Use
is like when
instead of a dice.
Yeah, Happy New Year's to Jesse.
New probability pickers. It's both random and not at the same time.
Yeah, right. You can learn it.
Yeah.
Too funny. And Jesse, what was your buddy?
Yeah, so I have a bud. I just wanted to quickly jump off Erica's. So you reminded me of a specific like technical challenge that I want to overcome this year. So this is one bud, and then the real bud will follow. Which is that I, as some of you may know, I do a lot of prototyping through code. I use scripts to generate game files out of Google Sheets, and I love my collaborators, but I really hate being responsible for updating everybody's prototype.
Yeah,
So
Jay's like that as well. Jay doesn't like that either.
right, and it's not that I don't mind. I just like it ends up creating a lot of. It actually relates to my actual blood. I realize now it creates a lot of anxiety in me because I feel like I have to be like, oh, I need to like get everything done immediately because if the prototype's not updated, nobody can update anything, and I'm the only one with the power to do this because I've made it super efficient. So I want to learn how to sort of push that outwards so that I can still use through my scripts, but like put something up on a website for my collaborators so that they can just push buttons and get updated things from spreadsheets. So I would like to create some kind of interface that mediates that process that I already use.
Cool.
And tying that into my bigger bud is I need to set better boundaries and expectations with publishers, co-designers, and myself. I have a very bad habit of letting game design bleed over and take over everything, and also like accepting more responsibility than is reasonable. And so I want to. I've started getting better at setting boundaries at the end of the year there, and I just want to this year be very good about expectations and boundaries.
Yes, and David Tomei said that it's a common thread and sen in big letters. And it's true.
I
I'm not going to deny
I
it.
think I'm in the same boat.
I'm not going to deny it. The people who are good at that thing do that thing, and if they're faster at it, they do it, and that's the way it is until it can't be. And so, on that note, I want to let everybody know about the tool that Jessey and I have been using lately that allows me to at least be somewhat helpful with the graphic design stuff. And the thing is that I'm not bad at graphic design at all. I actually enjoy it quite a bit. I just don't do the scripting part and therefore can't run the script. And Jay uses CorelDRAW and he's kind of hung up on that, like using CorelDRAW all the time. So, and he's super
Is that
fast
high enough
at it.
quality with it?
Yeah, it's just vector graphics, so everything that's vector is fine.
Fair enough.
We don't care
need,
about what it looks
we
like.
don't really need quality in.
No, I was just curious how they came out.
No. Yeah.
They come out fine. It's like high resolution. It's like 300 DPI. It's fine. Sorry. Anyways, so the tool that at some point I think I will do a tutorial on is Lucidchart. And Lucidchart is this program that I use for not spreadsheeting, for flowcharting. That's all I used it for before, is to make organizational charts for classes. And then I said, oh, why don't I do some interactive fiction in this? And it's funny because Eric Slauson is here, and Eric Slauson and I had been talking about Twine a little bit.
I've been using Twine.
Yeah, and I think Twine is fine.
It's a good logic device. That's kind of what it is.
I just needed it to be a little more shareable between people, and I know you can kind of do that with Twine, but it's not the same. And so Lucidchart became a thing that we could work on a couple pages together, and then Jessey and I discovered that it did some really cool stuff because it's kind of hooked into Google Docs in some weird way. But I can go to like gameicons.net or Flat Icon, call up an icon, copy it into my, just copy it, like Control-C, copy, and I can paste it into Lucidchart. And then Lucidchart has this really cool function where anything you pick up and put in this place called shapes, you can then pull out of shapes, and it comes out at the exact size that you put it in. So if I size it to like my icon size, I just drop it in that palette, and I pull it out of the palette to put on anything. And I can actually make a bunch of shapes, like it's almost innumerable shapes, into something, and save that in the palette and pull that all out. So I've made whole cards,
like a card template
in the palette, pulled it out.
We should be doing. I was gonna say, it sounds awesome. We should almost do a little tutorial on this because we've been kind of talking about how we want to start. We all like to learn and teach things that we. This sounds like a. Let's write that down for the possible teachable one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ideas that we've had, so we'll talk about those.
Yeah.
Those are good buds too. I think there's a lot of stuff in just Meeple Syrup that I'd like to do. Jessey and I don't know if I'd talk to you about it, Erica, because I think I was chatting with Jessey anyways, just about something else. I just had these random ideas. Jessey is really interested in doing video essays. So
yeah,
sort of
we were talking about that a little bit.
Sort of like, what is it, Gay? What is the channel, Jessey, that we like?
Game Maker's Toolkit is
Oh yeah, that one.
my favorite.
And so doing video
Ming,
essays
Lucid
around it.
Chart is infinitely easier to use than Nandak, in part because Nandak requires you to use code. Lucid Chart is WYSIWYG.
Yeah, it's a GUI, and it's really easy. Hello, Jason Mohan. Um, sorry. So yes,
Your
we were
buds.
talking about other buds.
Oh no,
or
the video essays.
Video essays.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yes, video essays. Sorry. So yeah, video essays I think would be that's something we're definitely going to look at. I think we kind of hit a nice spot with the infographics that we've done so far. A lot of positive feedback. Somebody, by the way, emailed me the other day saying, "Hey, is it okay if I distribute those to a game jam group that's coming in to do a game jam?" There's like
Mm.
40 people. I said, "Sure, just let them know where it's from, and that's cool." I don't need anything. We don't need anything from that.
Mm.
It's all information that we've talked about on the show before. And so a lot of people are really happy with that. Beth LePensée from Michigan University, University of Michigan. She University of Michigan? I can't remember. Um, Michigan State. She's Michigan State. She would like us to do 2 very specific ones, so she'd asked us for those. And I think people really like those, so I'm happy to do more of them. Jessey and Erica have helped us all write that, and they're great. And I think they're nice little tidbits of information. So
Yeah. And our goal is either things that would not work as a whole episode by themselves, or sort of like those really good like kernels of information that came from one of the episodes that
yeah,
turns into something that's like a great step-by-step follow. And I think that actually connects nicely with maybe another bud too, is that our goal this year, and I think we'll talk about kind of what we're hoping for the new layout and schedule like towards the end of this, which we're getting surprisingly close. But I was going to say we are now at 870 people on Facebook, and so I think we, as a nice growing one for this year, I think 1,000 people is a realistic
totally
goal.
doable. Totally doable.
Yeah, we can do 1,000.
So, yeah, if
Can
all
be
y'all out
a
there
group
let's get 1,000,
bud.
we'd be happy
Yeah.
with that. So people are asking about Card Maker and Nandeck and all those types of things. And yes, Lucid Chart doesn't do data merging. It's
No.
not really for that.
No, it's
A lot of stuff it does do that I don't know about. Like there's conditional formatting and things like that that I have no clue how to use yet. So
it's
Maybe
definitely.
reverse it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
was
say, it's
gonna say maybe
definitely.
there's. Sorry, go ahead. I did it again.
Ready, set, talk at the same time. I was going to say, Lucid Chart is really good for some things, and of course, tools like Nandeck or Illustrator, things that give you data merge, are different for other things. If it's a kind of thing where you want to use data merge for, Lucid Chart's not your tool.
not that we know of.
Not that we know of.
And I doubt it is.
But if it's the kind of thing where data merge is difficult, so in Kingdom Rush, our cards are like 5x5 grids where every space could have a different picture in it. The data merge on that's a pain in the butt to prepare. It's much easier to just drag and drop everything around. Or if you've got boards or player boards or references, things that are relatively static and highly graphic, Lucid Chart is awesome.
Yeah, for just quick one-off prototype type stuff. I wouldn't use it for like end of the production quality anything, but for me, for quick prototyping, it's really nice. Hey, Scott Hill is new here. Welcome, Scott. I see you're on your avatar on lots of other board game design stuff, so thanks for coming on. So yeah, other types of things that we'd like to do this year. Oh, I just Jessey had been talking about. Well, I posted a thing about an article that I wanted to read. I said saving for later, and Jessey had talked about it as well. And we just said, oh, why don't we do like a board game design book club, where we sort of
article club.
Yeah, like an article club where we all read the same article. So I disseminate the article, or Jessey or whoever, Erica, would disseminate the article to a group a couple days before, like a week before, and then we come and we share in a space kind of like this, whether it's a live stream or it's a closed Google Hangout for 10 people. That may be something that we look forward to in the new year. I know we're not going to do any Patreon type thing until Jessey's back in Canada. but that might be a Patreon thing where you get like access to, you know,
Book
us
club.
live all the time or something. The book club would be a really neat thing to do. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. They don't do that. Another new thing that we're doing this year, and I did have a trailer for it, but we'll just talk about it now because, well, we will. Is our new format. We actually have a plan.
Yes,
Jessey said, I
we'd
don't
like to
like
try
that we
it.
don't have a plan. And so we're going to try a plan. What are we doing, Erica? Exactly.
All
I don't
right,
remember.
so here's the idea, and then the nice thing is too, we'll give us a lot more chances to include you guys as the audience in multiple different ways as well. So the plan is about a 4-week cycle. So you can kind of predict where the next episode's going to go, and then we can tell you who's going to be on or what the subject's going to be. So week 1, which is what we're in right now, is kind of going to traditionally be a designer spotlight, but it might also be something of our choosing that we think is timely. So right
Dealer's
now,
choice.
being a new year, New Year's resolutions, we actually collected a bunch, which I'm even going to share the ones we got from Twitter because there's some really good ones in there. And that will be week 1. So if you are a new designer, we'd also like you to start reaching out to us as well, because you might be our next spotlight. And it would be a great way for us to connect with you so we know that you are out there. The next week 2s are going to be designing the game. The idea is that it is going to be a design-based session. You've seen us do this a couple of times, and people seem to think they're really fun or funny. And we've even had people jump in on design sessions before, where we'll pick a genre, mechanic, whatever it is, and we want to build, like, practice the actual design, whatever you want to call it, session, like the 3 of us. And the nice thing is too, you can kind of see what co-designing might look like, because for the most part, the 3 of us do bounce very quickly the way you would want with a co-designer. And we don't tend to say no, we tend to riff and keep going. So speak on that. Our focus for next week is going to be designing kids games in honor of New York Toy Fair coming up, and kind of some of the things that you consciously have to think of for that. And the nice thing is we can also share things we've heard from publishers that produce a lot of kids titles, often what they tend to be looking for or want you to skew towards. Week 3 is going to be industry and publisher focus. So this could be a lot of different things, because we have a lot of people who are trying to break into the industry, want to get published, want to talk about self-publishing. There's so much in this arena that we could go over. And so we'll constantly be looking for people who will also help you with that knowledge. So our goal for this first week 3 is going to be pitching to publishers that would be present, let's say, at New York Toy Fair. So something more corporate. And there's only so many times a year that you can pitch corporate. So if that's kind of your plan in the long term, is whatever you want, you know you're going more mass, well, you need to know where to be, and you need to know kind of what they're looking for and how to approach that. So the goal for right now is to bring on 1 or 2 people that we know from the corporate side, kind of talk about how their pitch system works, because in my experience, it's a little weird sometimes, and often off-site. Some are very weird. Then the idea for week 4 is, and this is where we want to have a little bit of fun with it, and you guys at home, will try to give you advance notice on this one so you can play along. We're going to do something called dissecting the game. The goal is that it gives us about a month's time that 3 of us will all play the same game. This is not necessarily a review per se. What we really want to do is just break down games to talk about how they're working, how they're using the mechanics. Obviously, we'll have opinions, but kind of more going into the idea of the walkthrough and the theory behind it, more so than I personally like doing this in the game, but we'll add flavor like that, I'm sure, anyway. And so that's the hope for our cycle, and we'll give you guys enough advance notice when we can. So our first pick is Istanbul, the dice game. We're going to be looking at that, pulling it apart, talking about the different mechanics in it and kind of how it functions. So if anyone has played or wants to play in advance, so you know what we're talking about, that's your heads up on that one. And so we'll give you as much notice as we can.
As well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
Cool.
I think that's kind of our cycle. We've had the request to go a little deeper into games and design, but still keep some industry people coming. And then, we always have stuff that, like, kind of on a daily basis. I think one of us will say to one of the other people, "Hey, why don't we do a show about this?" And we all say yes, and then it happens.
Never
But
happens.
now we're going to put it into a schedule, I think. And I think
Now it fits somewhere.
Yeah. It's going to be really exciting. So,
Which kind of goes towards probably some of our thorns.
yes.
Yeah. So thorns. Erica, what were thorns for you in 2018, and what are you going to do about them in 2019? They
I
might all be the
gotta
same.
learn
It
to.
might be the same for all of
I
us,
think
actually.
we all have the same problem, guys. We need to learn to say no.
I called
The
that
answer. Oh no, that's my thorn. You know what it is? Is like there's some overachiever part of me that knows I'm capable of doing it, so I'm just gonna go for it. And sometimes it works, and then I wonder why I'm so burnt out. So my goal is, and I think this is my goal last year too, but I think I am getting better. Is finding more balance. Yes, I want to be there for everybody. Yes, I want to support everybody. Yes, I want to do everything. But I feel like a lot of the times the things I'm saying yes to are for other people or other people's reasons. And I'm not trying to say to be selfish. Too much of my personality is also often caring more about what everybody else wants over myself. And so sometimes I might actually have to stop and think about what state am I in and can I give that? So, yeah.
I get that. Jessey, what about you? What is your thorn? I'll get back to the saying no because that's my thorn, but I want to know what your thorn is.
Well, then get into yours. Mine's different, so you might as well just.
I'll just continue on with the trend. I see.
Yeah.
I think Sen and I have the same problem. I think
Jessey just wants to set a new trend, and maybe that's because we're the parents of the group.
Maybe.
Are you calling me immature?
No.
Well, you have dog babies, but it's not quite the same.
No. Oh, those. Yes. Okay. Not my parents.
No. You're not. We're not your parent. That'd be weird.
That would be weird.
But yeah. So one of the things it's funny. So when I was working in clinic, one of the things that one of my preceptors told me is that, Sen, you really got to learn how to say no, because I would just keep taking on projects all the time. Yes, yes, yes. And she goes, I know you want to make a good impression, and I know, this was like 20 years ago when I was not a therapist. I was a student therapist. I know you want to get hired, and I know blah, 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 but you got to learn to say no, because in the end, you're going to end up with a bunch of mediocre projects instead of a few awesome projects. And I mean, she was totally right, and I learned there, but I apparently haven't brought that over to this part of my life. And maybe it's because this is much more fun than, therapy stuff. I love therapy, but this is definitely much more fun. And when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, do you want to make a game about this cool thing that you're already addicted to, or a big fan of, or own all the shirts for?" I just say yes. I say yes. And so I think this year
it's more love. It's love. You can put the love in it.
I love it. And this year I think we're gonna have to do a little bit less of that. Granted, this year already, I think between the three of us and then Jay, I'm working on 3 or 4 of my dream IPs already. And one of them that
I'm in the same.
And 3 of them that I can't, right? So Kingdom Rush between Helena and Jessey and I. Helena has already admitted it's her favorite app game ever, and it's probably the app game short of Star Realms that I have the most hours on, and I buy every iteration of it. So I am so pumped for Kingdom Rush, and I think we've made a brilliant system that is really, really cool, and now it's just content generation and tweaking and balancing, which is not the fun part, by the way, but it is a part we have to do, and so that's kind of neat. So we'll hopefully do more of that, and then a couple other ones that I think Erica knows about, and obviously Jessey and Erica, they know about all of these.
I was gonna say, I think I played some of them.
Yeah, even though they're not co-designing it with me, but they are co-designing other ones with me. They know all about them, but we can't talk about them, and it's so sad. So when you finally see me blow up on social media about something, it'll be what it's about. Jessey and I have a bunch of games coming out this year, so there's a lot of stuff that I didn't say no to last year, and I ended up not necessarily burnt out, but not with a lot of time.
It burns your creativity a little bit because you're not as wanting to jump on the projects just because there is that fatigue. Yeah, and you gotta be. And I think that's a good warning for some people. Is hopefully you've never experienced it, but when you get to the point where you're just like, I just need a break.
Yeah.
And before we get too far, I do want to share a bunch of the resolutions that we collected on Twitter to give some set of people to say that, and then we can hopefully have a few seconds to talk to the people on that side. So going down the list, this is based on whatever name they put up on Twitter. We have John's resolution: healthier balance between owning, playing, and designing games. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Owning has been a really interesting resolution, which I think for a future topic might be an interesting conversation with the future of board gaming in general. But you'll hear a trend as we keep going. Board Game Cheerleader says main focus is organizing and culling collections, so removing. But the plan is the idea of practicing that every 2 in is 1 out. And she actually thinks that's going to make it easier to get newer stuff to the table. The piles don't grow as quickly. Mandy was kind of back and forth talking with Sen about this saying no thing. So stop letting so many projects pile up. Kind of just say no to some stuff. Jesper's talking about pitching to a game to a publisher for the first time because he says he freaks him out. So we'll definitely be talking about. We will help you with publishers. They are different. You get used to it. Eventually, you just know them as people, and then it gets funny. Then it totally changes when you know them as people. Karen says, get 2 or more games through play testing and into graphic design. So pushing ahead her prototypes. She also wants to establish a ladies' game night at a local library. Play a couple games a month. And I thought this was really interesting. Wanted to have a game-inspired fictions.
Oh, interesting. What is that?
Which I thought I'm not really sure. I was like, that sounds like a fascinating idea. Is the stories about games, stories based on games? Are you in the world of games? I had so many questions. And then figure out how to market a game, like marketing games works. And that could be a really interesting one too, because that's a hard one for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that could be a great topic for the show, like a whole...
Yeah, we should get Daniel Zayas on and stuff like that. Let's get, and then Pixel Art Meeple says putting a moratorium on game purchases. You kind of see what's going here, guys. With exceptions. So the idea is that you have to be able to sell a game to afford the new one, and trading is acceptable. And then we had another one from KH Concepts that just said publish.
Oh,
and so that was that was the responses we got on just a quick little Twitter blast we did for a day, just to kind of see like what's going on with people.
Right, and I know we have some from the Meeple Syrup webpage, from the Facebook page, where people are saying, dusting off prototypes and getting them onto the table. Zach Connolly was talking about that, and we sang a whole Bob Seger medley about it. Don't ask. And I think some other people responded. I'm scrolling. Hold on, still scrolling. More scrolling. Oh, there's some scrolling happening. Oh, man, what is it? All this not scrolling stuff. Oh, here we go. Michael Chang is saying that he'd like to work out a better schedule for releasing review videos. Travis Magram, who is on our show, who's on the feed right now, said that he would like to be more proactive with publishers. So there's a quick movement right now, to be honest, in the industry on the designer side, that Scott Eaton, who is the designer of Codenamed Duet and some other stuff, has kind of brought to light some issues, some pain points that he has had in dealing with publishers. And so a bunch of us are talking about, what can we do about that as an industry from the design side. So that's what that is about. And yeah, there we go. So let's see. We have a bunch in the feed. Scott Hill says that his main design-related resolution is to simply make time for game design every day. That's a great one.
Oh, I wish. That's what Stephen King says to do, guys. If you can do it, do it. Like, it's.
Mm-hmm. Eric Slauson says that this is a very big post. Let's see if I can actually put it on the feed. I don't know. Oh my gosh, it comes
there it is.
Woo!
Okay. Eric's Rose is, I had a couple of publishers specifically come and find me to make their games most social after having played my games. It was really excited to have a thing. Oh, so you're becoming known in the industry. That's
for
awesome.
interaction.
Eric. Yeah, and trust me when I say that if you want your games to have that little extra je ne sais quoi about interaction, Eric is your dude. He makes some great stuff for that. His Bud was to go to Toy Fair actually in hopes of making more contacts with kids' family game companies. So he's excited that's actually happening. So he's going to New York Toy Fair this year.
That's
His
where they all
Thorn,
are.
yeah, not taking care of myself at cons. Yeah, I'm actually very introverted, so I need to go back to the room for naps, TV veg out, etc. to recharge, but I always feel guilty about it or like I'm missing out. Yeah, FOMO's a thing, my friend. FOMO is a thing.
I think we've all sort of started to learn to take that time out. And if you don't do it, you do need it. I, having ADD, get horribly overstimulated to the point where I've actually like almost gone into panic attack mode at Dice Tower one year. And some people remember seeing that. I go a little wacky. So I got to stop, have that time out. It is a ton of stimulus you're not used to. It is not natural. Very few people can handle it. You need coping mechanisms. It is okay to take a time out.
Go for a walk. Go see some of the beautiful parks that are in Columbus, Ohio, or whatever, right?
What?
Travis, what? There's parks there? Travis said Rose.
Do they have games?
His first advance, and he wants more of that. That's right, to buy more ties. That's awesome.
No, to pay off all the cons you go to. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You need the advances to pay for the cons, guys.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. Bud, he started tracking how long it was since each project was touched to keep track of projects I'm ignoring. Oh, that's really good. That's good, Bud.
You got some management skills, Bud, because I could not do that.
Oh, honestly, like I'm thinking, like Jessey, we should just hire your wife as our project manager. She's good at that.
Well, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Check his Thorn.
Oh, thinking that means I need to work on all the projects that I am ignoring. Well, maybe. Although
that's double edged.
It's okay to shelve things. Like if you're not thinking about it, you're not in that mental space to work on it. Like honestly, that's what inspiration is, and I think we forget that a lot. We force it. You need inspiration. It is a real thing. That's where a lot of drive comes from. If you are genuinely not even thinking about that game, leave it, because if that's going to come back, you're going to have that click, eureka, snap, whatever tiny bit that's going to bring that game back to your memory. That's when you work on it.
Erica's given like talks on inspiration. I do think that it's a good practice, like Scott Hill said, to make time for game design every day and do something a little bit. But
well, that trains your creativity.
Yeah, and so you can do both, but don't force yourself. Like forcing.
No, that's what I'm saying. Don't force the design.
That's right, and it's okay to let a project linger. That doesn't mean it's dead. It might be, but that doesn't mean it's dead. Sometimes you just need 2, 6, 10 years before you can really make it work.
Done that before. I have the prototype for the game that became just a little bit of Akrotiri.
Yeah, Akrotiri's history is a great example of that.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, Ming Yanglu said, Rose, this year was crazy year of growth. Went from 300 to almost 1,500 followers. Launched a Patreon and a pretty active Discord channel, and self-published 3 different original anime board games. So those are the games that he's making like skins of other games for. Bud, I went to a lot of cons, never did that before, and met a ton of cool people. I want to keep doing that. I want to pursue my relationship with Level 99 games and hopefully become a published designer this year. Right, so he wants to publish an original design, and he loves Brad, and he loves Level 99. He finally got to meet them this year, so that's awesome. Thorn figured out how the hell not to get burnt out. Yeah, right?
There's no answer to that one.
Except take care of yourself, like you said, Erica. I've signed up for a lot more than I should have, and I need to figure out how to make some friends that I can spread out my workload with, right? So
you want minions.
Well,
co-designers. Yeah.
Co-designers. No, I'm starting. That's not how that relationship works.
Let's see here. Dave Tomei. No, it is.
He says the games aren't skins. He says the games aren't skins.
The games are original games.
Oh, cool. I thought you were talking about the other one.
He does for animes what we get hired to do for things.
Oh, I thought you were doing fan skins and stuff. Sorry, buddy.
And Travis is also saying if anyone wants the Google Sheet that he uses for very basic project management, he can share it.
Well, awesome.
That would be great, Travis. Please share it.
I was
do.
gonna say any management tools of any kind, share it because it's gonna work for somebody, and you just made their life better.
Yeah.
David Tomei, his thorn is me. Not me, Sen.
Oh.
Me, David. He gets in his own way,
You're
expecting too
David?
much. And no, I'm not David. And fails to focus on making anything happen. David, you gotta be a little less harsh on yourself, buddy. You are an awesome guy, and we
Yeah,
couldn't
you
do
do
a
a
lot of the
ton of
stuff
stuff,
without him.
don't you?
He
I feel like
totally
David does a
does.
ton of stuff.
Yeah, I think he's talking specifically about game design, though. That he gets in the way of his
it's
own
all that other
game design.
stuff.
Yeah. Shem says, Shem Phillips, by the way, who I didn't know was here. Welcome, Shem, from New Zealand, says, my rose and butter on this are one and the same. Co-designing with Sam McDonald. We started with the architects of the West Kingdom and have more designs in the work. Awesome. I'm so happy you guys linked up. Architects was a big hit at Basecamp this year, so good on you, mate.
Yeah.
My thorn would be dealing with a lot of shipping delays and issues for the Kickstarter fulfillment of Architect. Shipping is always a thorn, right? And I'm sure Helena Capel could also talk to us all about shipping and how much of a crapshoot that is. Jamie Jones says his thorn. I spent the end of the year frustrated with interactions of some specific publishers that may be questioning why I bothered even trying. Since Basecamp, though, I have a new idea that I'm hoping will be my 2019 rose. Awesome. Glad we could be part of your base camp. Thanks for playtesting some of our stuff, and let us know when we can help you playtest. In fact, Jamie had said, I think Jessey had a copy of my pirate game, and I think he left it at your house, Sen. Did you leave it at my house, Jessey?
Almost certainly.
Okay, so I'll find it and we'll play it. Sorry, Jamie. But yeah, if you get new rules to me, awesome. We'll do that. Because Jamie
I was
helps
gonna
us
say
a lot.
that frustrating encounters one too. I think that could be a really good one. We sort of touched on it earlier as one of our industry topics. It'd be really curious to see what kind of interactions people had, and if we not blaming anyone anyway, but if we can kind of suss out maybe why some of these things occur or how to avoid them, it might curb some anxiety.
We really need to talk about it in a way that emphasizes the asymmetry in the relationships. I think a lot of new designers have rose-tinted glasses when they think about how these things should go and so on and so forth. So ways of being proactive, what you can do to make a difference to stopping these interactions before they happen, given power differentials. Because
also knowing when knowing when things aren't personal is a really hard one. We talked a lot about it in playtesting. I think it's a huge one in publishing.
Yeah, very cool. So that's everybody's roses, buds, and thorns. That's a weird way of saying. Yeah, I think I've got everybody.
Well, David thinks, did Jessey do your thorn?
I didn't.
Jessey did not. Okay, one second. 1, 2, 3.
Well, at least somebody's paying attention.
Hey, that's okay. Yeah, it's a good way. It's going to be a good aspirational way to wrap up. So my thorn from last year is actually Meeple Syrup, and mostly my unfulfilled promises to all of you guys, these two, and myself. So there was a bunch of unuploaded videos that I was supposed to handle. And also I had all these like content dreams that I kept talking about, never doing, like those video essays. And so my thorn from last year was not contributing to the Meeple Syrup team in the way that I wanted to. And so this year it's going to be a rose. So in 2020, I'm going to look back and be like, you know what? Meeple Syrup was amazing. And I brought more to the table than I wanted to.
And I'm going to add, because Jessey's more awesome than he's letting credit for, because he was dealing with some really bad software that kept giving him so many problems. It was ridiculous. And this is,
I actually don't think it was the software. I think it was his connection.
It was the connection. There was something wrong. Let's blame everything but Jessey right now. Anyway, but then the other side of it is once we get the videos going, I'm going to start stripping the audio, and we are going to start focusing on having that podcast going again, because I know a lot of you need to do something on the go, and this is not as friendly for that.
Yeah. Scott Hill asked me just the other week, and so I asked David Tomei, and David Tomei said he's going to work on, because David is a giver, right? As we all know, David said he's going to work on some method that we can do it ourselves, but he'll facilitate part of it, like maybe,
or like if we can pass off the audio or something,
or some drag and droppy thing where I don't know. He'll help us. because he did all the
Thank
old ones,
you.
and we said we were going to do it, and so he stopped doing it, and then we didn't get the uploads done. So
Yeah.
then he's like, I don't know what you guys want, so we're just not doing anything right now. And I said to people, because at least every other week somebody asked me, so about those podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh, Johnny Hinkle's on,
Yeah.
which is great. Good to see you, Johnny. So
Yeah.
just to revisit format, boom. The 2019 format will be a 4-week cycle. In that 4-week cycle, we have new
Spotlight.
designer spotlight or dealer's choice, where we pick a topic, kind of like today was not a spotlight, but it's a topic that we wanted to talk about. That doesn't fit with the other ones.
Please get in contact with us. We really do want to hear about new designers, or if you see someone up and coming, you let us know about them, because we want to give them that chance to kind of step out and say, I'm here.
Yeah. And then 2 is in our format is designing the game. And we're going to talk about specifics about designing a specific type of game. And the next one that's coming up is kids games. If you have any games that you're having like problems with, pressure points that you want to massage out, that we can help you with, that has like a theme, like, oh, I'm working on a logic and deduction game, or I'm working on, player versus player arena game, maybe we can help, and give us topics. I think that'd be great. Hello, Alicia. She's excited for the 2019 format. Then number 3 will be industry publisher interviews and talks, which may have some design content, may not, but usually it's great because you'll get to see faces, put names to faces of, who's who in the industry, get to hear their take on certain aspects of it that we'll ask them about. And we usually bring them on with some expertise in mind. So the first one that's going to come on this year will be about kids games or New York Toy Fair, something around that, pitching to mass market companies about kids games and toys. That might be where it is. So it most likely will be somebody like Tanya from Hasbro, or somebody like that, Andrew.
No spoiler.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to
figure it out.
Yet. We'll figure it out.
We have a few people we are good corporate.
And then dissecting the game is the 4th one, right?
Yeah. And the 4th one's dissecting the game, where we play a game. All of us will play a game, and we'll come and talk about it. We'll do a deep dive into the design of that specific game. And yeah, David, I noticed that too, that sometimes when our feed slows down a little bit, that we get a video pixelated, but it's only one window at a time. So I don't know.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Cool. Anyway, yes, we're happy, Eric, to be back in your life, dude. It's great to see you on. Good night to everybody. Good night, David. Good night to Johnny. Good night, Alicia. Good night, Jamie. Good night, Ming. Good night, Travis. Good night, Scott. I think I said that already. Good night, Andrew. Good night, Stefan. Who else is on here? Good night, Shem. Good night, Helena. Good night.
Yes, Alicia.
Jessey. Good night, Jason. Wow. Good night, Daniel Rocky, who I didn't say hi to. Good night, Sir Bob, who I didn't say hi to. Sorry, buddies. Man, I know, right? This feed is going so fast. Oh, okay. Wow. And good night, Moon. Good night, Moon.
I will say, don't forget to keep up talking on the Meeple Syrup page. There's always questions going up, always, discussions being had. So make sure.
Because we're not live doesn't mean we're not alive.
Yeah, I mean, I do get a little jealous of Gabe every now and then when I see people talking on Board Game Design Lab. It's like, come talk on our page too.
Yeah.
We'll get there, guys. We'll get there.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Well, it's been great.
I did say you. Good night.
Good night,
bye,
everybody.
Thank you for watching the Meeple Syrup Show. If you'd like to help support our show and the podcast, please visit www.patreon.com/meeplesyrup. Thank you for your support.